So I decided today that I wanted to kind of do a quick video talking about the 7.5 ways that you can essentially iterate through or loop through an array in JavaScript. And I know it's being a little bit funny there. Wouldn't there be 8 ways or 7 ways? But I just want to kind of quickly show some of the different ways that you can take an array as an example and then loop through each one of the items in that array using JavaScript. So let's take a quick look and see what that looks like. All right, so I have a playground open here, and so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to create an array very quickly. I'll call this R, and we'll put in a square brackets and put in a string here called first, maybe a number for the second one, floating point number for the third, and we'll say foo for the fourth, and we'll put a fifth in here, and we'll call this bar. Foo bar, very popular variable names. And examples. So now I've done that, one of the things I want to be able to do is I want to be able to kind of print out what we have here inside of that array. So in JavaScript, the way that people typically will do that is they'll type out console.log, and they could put in the array in there, and that would work. You can see that down here in the console down below. But I want to do some quick shorthand so that we don't have to type that out every single time. So what I'm going to come up here and do is I'm going to create a new function called pren, and I'm going to set that equal to, well, let's say whatever we pass in. Let's say item, and we'll pass that item in. Oops. Okay, so now we have a function here. So I should be able to, if I wanted to, come over here and say pren something. Okay, so we know that's working. So now what I want to do is I want to kind of show the most common way that I think a lot of people are used to doing loops or repeating with a lot of programming languages, and that's generally with a for loop. The for loop, you typically, you can pass in a couple different conditions, and so I'm going to set up an iterator here called I, and I'm going to set that equal to 0. Now I've done that. One of the things I want to do is I want to come over here and I want to set up a condition where I want the loop to stop. So in this case, I want it to stop once it reaches the end of the array. So anytime I is less than r dot length, and we just want to iterate that, add 1 every single time it goes through that loop. So now we've done that. Now I can go over here, I can say pren, and I can take the array, and then I can add in this subscript of I, and we can see that that outputs the full results right here. So that's one way that you can do it. So we'll just come over here and we'll say this is our first one. Now another way we can do that is we can come over here and we could say, all right, I want to kind of iterate through this collection. And so there's a concept in JavaScript called for in loop. So I'm going to come over here and I'm going to say let index in, and we'll say the array. And so now this will go through each one of the items in the array. And so if I come out here and I say, let's print that out, I could put in index, but you can see this is actually an index, right? 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. So what we want to do is we want to actually output the actual item. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to also add that as a subscript inside of here. And you can see we've got the same result as before. So this is way number 2. Now, something that was added not too long ago, I'd say probably about 4 or 5 years ago, was the for of loop. So if I come over here and I say, we'll say let item of that array, and we'll come over here and we'll just put out that item. And you can see we get the same results as before. But I didn't have to add a subscript, so I'm not getting the index. So this is pretty nice. So this is the third way. Now the next way, we could actually use a do while loop. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to come over here and I'm going to define this iterator, set it equal to 0. And I'll come over here, I'm going to say do, and we're going to say while, and while is basically the condition. So I'm going to say while the array.length, or in this case, I want to say while I is less than the array.length. Right? And I'm going to come over here and add 1 to the iterator every single time it goes through that loop. And if I didn't do that, it wouldn't have a way of breaking, but I'm going to put that in there. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to say array add I as a subscript. There we go. And we see we get the same results here as before. So now I can say that's the fourth way of doing it. Now you can also just do a while loop. So I can come over here, I can say while, and in this case, I'm going to come over here and I'm going to create a counter. So I'm going to say let counter equals 0, right? And what I want to do now is I want to say while the counter is less than array.length, we can loop through here. And so what I want to do is I want to take the counter and add 1 to that every single time it goes through the loop. And then what I can do now is I can come over here and I can print out the array using counter as a subscript. And we can see that also works. So that would be the fifth way. And these are kind of the traditional ways that you would loop through an array in JavaScript. But there's also some more functional ways that you can do it. So I'd say way number 6 here is one of the things we can also do is we can also come over here and we could say r.for each. And in this case, it's calling this function on every single item inside the array. So I can actually pass in a lambda expression. This is considered a higher order function. So I'm going to define the input there as item, and then use an arrow function. And in the arrow function, I'm just going to say we want to print that item. And we can see we're getting the same result as before. So let's come over here. And we will say that's number 6. So let's take a look at number 7. So this is also something that's kind of popular in functional programming. And that's actually to proceed through like an array or a set of state recursively. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come over here and I'm going to create a function. And I'm going to call this recursive. And we're going to take an array as a parameter. Now what I can do is I can come over here and I can say let the item equal to array dot slice. Shift. And we can print that out. And we can also do this. We can put in a check here, and I can say if, let's say, the array is greater than 0, say the array.length greater than 0, then we want to have this function call itself again. So we'll come over here, we'll say recursive, and then we'll pass in same array. And we can see that that also gets the same results back here in the console. So that's way number 7. Now I know at the beginning of the video I said, what about 7.5 ways? What's the halfway of doing it? Well, one way of doing it is if you look up here before, I kind of defined a function there as a lambda expression. One of the things I could also do here is I can come over here and I could say const recurse is equal to, and then what I'm going to do is just come over here and I'm going to pass in that array and then use an arrow function here for the body. And now what I can do is I can come over here, I can say recurse the array and yeah, I gotta change this to this. Or just recurse. And there we can see that now that's also an 8th way, but technically it's just a function recursively calling itself. So I'm going to say 7.5. So there's 7.5 ways that you can iterate through an array in JavaScript. If you have a couple other ways that you want to let me know about, please leave those in the comments. Also, if you like this channel, you like the content in this channel, please subscribe up there. I really appreciate that. So let me know what you think.